Wayne Rogers, here with my good brothers. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell them how long they have been married. Come on, fellas. Come on, Pastor Burke. Talk to us, man. Introduce yourself.
Rodney Burke. I've been married 27 years. Been with my wife for 31 years.
Right? Come on. He said right. No. Don't check for references, man. You got your notes.
On now.
Yeah, he looked over. You see him look over away?
He looked over. Am I right?
You caught that? You caught that? That's because y'all just be paying attention a little bit too much.
Oh, okay. Yes, sir. Sorry. My main man P.
Yeah, you guys know that I was with the group last week, and me and my wife has been remarried now for 2 years. Before we were married 13 years. And there's a story behind that, but we'll dive in and then maybe we can touch that a little bit.
Yeah, this is the Couples Connect around the world here, just trying to help married couples stay married in this Corona time, and even in this last and evil days time. Amen.
Perilous.
Yeah, I think it's pretty tight. We just kicked our wives out this Friday, so we have to get the truth.
Yes.
Ooh.
The truth, Rodney.
Listen, I'm gonna tell the truth with the standing beside me, behind me, on the other side of me, and trying to hide right over there. I'm gonna tell the truth.
Don't be intimidated. Look over your shoulder. She don't got a knife in her hand, does she, Rodney? I don't want to.
Listen, if she does, that's all right. I'm a silverback.
Yep, that's right. If it costs us our life.
So of course we want to, trying to help couples, just understand marriage, understand the wife role, understand the husband's role, and just the challenges that are in life, and I appreciate you brothers coming on, allowing God to use you in this time. I don't like scripts, so, it's just your heartfelt, what not just what you've been through, but we're going to have live questions where people can chime in and try to get some questions answered. And we're just talking. We're not necessarily, we could be preaching. Pastor Burke probably may get the organ going and preach. Minister Dunn may, get the piano and the drums going. So, but we're just talking. We're just trying to. What's that, Pastor Burke?
I said I'm done with you. I'm done.
I didn't know I could play the piano, but
I didn't know I could preach.
Pastor Burke sing.
Hey.
I
didn't know I could preach. Out today, right? This will turn into a whole nother show.
That's right. So one of the things that I want to just as far as a guideline for tonight, speaking to you fellas and just talking just out and open with no script or anything like that. 1 Corinthians chapter 7 lets us know that the reason why some people get married, and that is because they want to get it on. And so I believe that over probably half the church, the reason why they got married, as far as brothers are concerned, is because they wanted to be with the wife. They wanted to stay in God's law because they feared God. And I oftentimes, and I've said it before, if it wasn't in God's law that we had to get married in order to do married things, I think a lot of men wouldn't get married.
Man, he just gonna say that like that?
Listen, that was good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So that's where we open up. Don't say it's good. You got
let me tell you.
Brother Burke grabbed that while I look at some scripture so I won't get in trouble. I can say the Bible.
Well, because I'm gonna take it right off the cuff, and I believe in being transparent. Because I believe transparency in marriages will help save other marriages. My wife and I wasn't in the church. I was backsliding at the time. My mother told me, notice I said told me, capital T, capital O, L, capital D, told me that the woman you get pregnant is the woman you're going to marry. All right. So according to her word and everything, that's how we got married. So when we got married in that way, I can't speak for my wife, but I'll speak for myself. My mind wasn't necessarily on pleasing God. I was afraid of my mom a little bit. You know what I mean? A little bit afraid of my mom and afraid of the God that she served that I ran away from.
All right, yeah.
Catch what I'm saying? I ran away from and married her. And the thing about it is that it looks good on the outside, but how do you look as a man on the inside? I was very immature. Emotionally. I was immature as a man. What were we? Was I 22, 23 years old, 24 years old, something like that? Very immature. So, that's how we got started. It wasn't for how you said it, Brother Wayne, I wanted to please God. Nah. But once I matured, because as P. Dunn said, if you don't mind me saying your name like that, P. Dunn said,
oh, yeah, we're brothers, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. As P. Dunn said, him and his wife divorced. So my wife and I was, like I said, immature for years. And that's how we come to know each other. Because once I was reclaimed and went to a TM camp is when I met y'all brothers, as I was still trying to mature in my marriage. And because my wife and I divorced. And then the Lord strengthened and helped me for us to be remarried, because when we got remarried, I remarried her. I set the date, told her we're going to get pictures taken in our our wedding attire. I wanted to show up at the church, had the church all set up, had the kids as the bridegroom and the bridesmaid, had the whole setup. When she came walking into the church, it was the best picture I've ever seen in my life. She just bawled, started crying, so it's been rocky, I can say rocky, but it's a beautiful rocky mountain to climb. Marriage is a beautiful thing.
Go ahead, P.
So wait a minute, let's go back to the original question. And Rodney, that's a dope testimony. I'll just keep that. That's a blessing. I remember you telling me that before I got remarried, and you told me that testimony, and it strengthened a brother. So that is an awesome testimony. But the original question, Wayne, are you saying that there's men out there, or maybe younger men? I know we all are in our 40s now, or approaching. So are you saying 5? Oh, I remember. Yeah. And he looks the exact same. I've probably known him since I was probably 25, 24, and Ronnie, you ain't aged a bit.
Thank you, Jesus.
Amen. But that original question that you said was that some will get married just to do marital things. Is that what you're?
No. So the question is, I believe over probably half the church, if it wasn't for God's law or for the Bible, if you will, which is God's law, His word, saying in order to have sex, you have to get married. I believe there's a lot of us that got married because that's what we want to do. We want to have sex. It wasn't because of love. And that's what Bert was saying. He was like, wait, my mom I was fearful of my mom. He's saying, whoever you got pregnant, that's who you with. And I understand that teaching, if you will. But go ahead, Pete.
Well, I just speak from experience. When I got married, I remember looking at Crystal at 20 years old and saying to her, I want to do it right. And that was simply because the attraction that was there, physically, So it was just simple to me. I was very active in the church at the time, and I wanted to be active in the church at the time. So she wasn't the only one that I went to and said that. I went to my leaders and told them, hey, I want to be married because, I'm a young man and a healthy young man, and I wanted to do it right. And you take that element out, I think a healthy young man, if we just addressing that, if you're a healthy young man and you want to do it right, yeah, that is a part of the equation. That's part. Love is definitely there. I'm in love with you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. But if you're a healthy young man, if you want to do it right, you're not going to be out there just, having sex with everybody. I always take it to my adopted nephews. I tell them, hey man, you need to be praying for a wife when you're not looking for one. Because when you run into that young lady that you just think she's just the finest thing since God broke the mold, and I tell them she got the top and the bottom. You know what I mean? And they're like, oh yeah, there are some girls out there, but just because physically you are attracted to her doesn't mean that's the Lord's pick. That's very important if you're a man in faith. You have to know God's pick, right? I mean, biblically, we are supported where God actually made the decision. And I think we can go as far as the garden, where God made that choice. He had that woman for you in mind. And that's where the rubber meets the road. You just can't, I was just talking to him last night. Bear Bib DeVoe had a song called Poison. You remember that, guys? You said never trust, what is it? Never trust a big butt and a smile?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just because your head is turning does not mean that's the one, and we are very visual as men, and maybe we touch some of that, but that's just not your reason. But if you take that issue or take those desires to God, let him direct your path.
So even with God directing your path, or your parents who are godly parents saying, hey, you're going to get together, minus all that, finding the right one of the biggest reasons, again, as the question stated, because where I'm going, or where we're going to go down as far as the path is concerned, is that a lot of marriages in the church, we're catching up necessarily to the world as far as the divorce rate. We're divorcing in the church. We're leaving each other because of whatever case may be. And then again, I believe that if the man gets himself, if the husband, not the man, the husband gets himself together, I believe the marriage will be together. Just as where the wife, but I think the more of the onus is on the man, the husband is important in this whole entire equation. And where I was starting at in the thought process as far as going down the path that we're going to go down is that one of the reasons why we wasn't necessarily looking to be a husband, we just wanted to be right before God's eyes and right before our leaders in the church. We didn't want to put a sting on the church. And I believe a lot of, I'm probably one of the fewest men out there that if it wasn't God's law you had to get married to have sex, I'm probably one of the few that still would have got married, even if it wasn't God's law. I believe I want my own food. I don't want to go to a restaurant and everybody's picking off my plate. That's not a good look for me. So
I love the little illustration. I love it. That's good. I want everybody picking from my plate.
Yeah, I don't want nobody picking. I'm still getting married because when I was in the world, I didn't just fool around. I kept to myself because if it was free for me, it's free for everybody else. I'm not that cute. And so I didn't want, and nor did I want my wife to necessarily compete necessarily, or she didn't have to compete, but you know, if I wasn't saved, I could do what the world do, but that wasn't my mindset because I was a church kid. And so it's a lot of husbands, a lot of men, first, young men that are in the church that are healthy young men that want to get married, and they should want to get married. I believe a lot of us just wouldn't get married because of that necessarily. That it was God's law that we had to get married. What would you say to that, Pastor Burke?
But you know, like you said, that, you know, I want everybody picking from my plate. You know what I'm saying? That's hilarious. I'm sorry. You know, truth be told, I do agree with you that you know, you got to be careful. You know, one is got to be, when you want to get married, it's got to be not solely all on the flesh. You know, when it's solely all on the flesh, my opinion is that it's superficial. You know what I'm saying? It's superficial. For example, my prayer, not even, you know what I mean, knowing that it would be a prayer that would come to pass, I was very superficial. I was like, Lord, I want a wife. This when I was young, you know, I want a wife that's light skinned, long, pretty, black hair, you know, big butt, you know, this, that, so on. Superficial, you know. And with that being said, I made a wife light skinned, you know, all that stuff, you know. So a lot of men that's in the church may say, like you said, Wayne, I want to get married just to have, you know what I mean, to be right with God. But I want to get married for sex. And if it wasn't right with God, and we could just have sex and not get married, you know, I'll do that. That's, of course, according to the carnal mentality. Of course we would, you know, because I don't believe boys are raised to be groomed to be husbands. Boys are raised and groomed to be men. A lot of girls are raised and groomed to be wives, but through the function. You know what I mean? Take care of yourself, clean the house, you know, cook, you know what I mean, do all that kind of stuff. But for the man, it wasn't even in the mentality and raising men. I wasn't raised like that. You know what I'm saying? To look for a wife. So it's good that, like P. Dunn said, he talks to those young boys and tell them. And I tell the brothers in the church there, so listen, man, you know, you don't want to be led by your flesh, you know, and a lot of them already living with the girl. And to tell them, so listen, man, I want you to be right with God. I said, I understand you came and you got baptized in the name of Jesus, you know, and you come into church. I said, the thing about it is this: as you continue to play Russian roulette with your eternal soul and the destination of your soul, and going back home to that person and not taking that step to separate yourself to be right with God, you playing Russian roulette. You lay down and go to sleep. Who just say you're going to wake up? And if your focus is with the mentality that a lot of the world say is just a piece of paper, that's a lie. You know, it's a covenant that you make between you and your wife and God. And if you already doing husband and wife married thing, what's wrong with you just get married? You know, just get married, you know? So, you know, they have to really seriously not be led by the flesh, because once the flesh have a taste, and I'm not like you, Wayne, I was brought up in the church, but I thought the grass was green on the other side. I went out. I went out.
You wouldn't have got married, huh?
I went out. You know what I mean? Plate dipping. You know, the whole thing. You know, and that's a great mentality that you have, and that's why I love this thing that we're doing, because we all three of us is like a Matthew, Mark, and Luke.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like a Matthew, Mark, and Luke.
So a lot of times in the marriage, and reason why I brought necessarily that focus point necessarily up, because where we're going is a lot of times, as I said before, if the marriage is going wrong, then it's because the husband is not doing his job. Period.
I agree.
Period.
I agree.
And so being that, what would be the role after we got past, okay, I got what I want. Now I got to be a husband. There's a lot of frustration in our marriages that wives are looking for their husbands to be the husband. And he's like, hey, and I don't want the wives to go and ask their husband, that's not wise. Did you only marry me because you only want to be right with God? You know, that's not, we're telling you right now, that's because I'm a healthy young man in the church.
Stop looking over to your right, man. Stop doing that, man. What's all that here? What's all that? Yeah,
hey, Burke, I'm in the room by myself, so I wouldn't feel threatened.
Me too.
You know what I'm saying? Look, he turned around. She better not come in the room right now.
But the truth of the matter is, I'm in the kitchen all by myself, but my voice travels.
Yeah,
it's okay. But because it's the husband's necessarily, what would you consider to be the husband? I mean, I know the word. Talk about the word. What would you consider the husband's role? What is a husband?
Peter?
Okay. So, I mean, just to piggyback off of that role of the husband, just before, and because we addressed, you know, the reason and that urge that we have to get married for this reason. You know, for this reason, I want to, but I often say if I'm talking to the 20-year-old people, right? You know, I would say sit down and I would tell them that you have to do that time, this time period, your season that you're in now well. So any young man that comes to me, I'm like, well, have you been a young man? Well, like, have you been out there, you know, sowing your royal oats? Because when you get married, that ain't just gonna just disappear. Those desires ain't gonna go away. You need to deal with that well. So when if you do that role well, if you do your teenage role well, if you learn how to communicate with God well and tell him that's where I failed out. I should have done every season well. So when I go into my marriage, I still won't be having these battles. I have, you know, if you haven't yet got that under control, young man, then you need to get that under control first, as we would say, as we playing chess. There's certain moves you got to do first before you do that next move that sets the game up. Yeah, Bert, you know what I'm talking about. We didn't play it on the campground. It's certain moves that sets up the next move, right? And
that's right.
So as me and Wayne plays chess, he says, let me move this piece first. So that lets me know as his competitor that he got another move coming. My man got some move coming. And that's just, there's certain things you need to do first. Yeah, we can talk about the role of a husband, but young man, before you step into that role, I need you to do some things first. Because
speaking of first, you know, I know that there's singles on here as well, but there's married young men, married men, period, just on this line. What do they need to do to improve the role of the husband first?
Yeah. I mean, if we talking about it in the natural, man, if I was talking to me, I needed to definitely have a career, you know, to be able to support a whole other person besides myself, and to prepare. So those are things that in the natural.
And if I could jump in. Oh
yeah, please.
I was gonna say also, Pete. The other thing is to love yourself. You know, you got to love yourself, and loving yourself, of course, is taking care of yourself, groom wise, the whole 9 yards. And from loving yourself, then you also got to be a person that's proactive and not reactive. You got to be a visionary, see ahead. You know, if and when I get married, this is what I want to have for my wife. And from there, I believe you touched on that earlier, P. Dunn. Then from there, you start building, whether it's your, you know, the mentality, you know what I mean, your career, your education, having an account, you know what I mean, savings account, you know what I mean, and a checking account, and having another account as a nest egg. Why? Because like you said, P, when you get married, you're taking care of not just you, but somebody else, and somebody else is depending on you. And I forget who it was that said it to me. I forget who it was. It was a Pastor Harris. Someone said it that man, when you marry your wife, you take on the role of her father.
Whoa.
And the role of her father is not the one telling her what to do, but the role of her father is being a protector, being a provider, you know what I mean, being a keeper, you know what I mean, looking after her, looking out for her, you know, letting her know that you have a secure place. Emotionally, you have a secure place. Physically, you have a secure place. And then me as a young man getting married, or me as a man that's married and been married for a while, that's something you got to daily work on, because your marriage is always challenged. You know, whether it's inside or outside, your marriage is always challenged. And it's your responsibility as a husband, and that's your role, your function as a husband, is to protect your marriage, protect your relationship, protect your wife. And I love Pastor Harris' teaching. He opened up my understanding so much. You as a husband, you have to be ready to die for your wife. Don't you be the one talk about, I heard something move in the room, baby, go check it out.
Hey, I take a step further. He just told a story about that. He said somebody was beating on the door, and he was the first one that ran to the door.
Yeah.
And it's not only being able to take a bullet for your wife. The Bible says to love your wife as Christ loved the church, and this is where we often fail
He
at.
his life for.
It's not just that he just went up there and he died and it was a sword. Christ went through some suffering. Willing to suffer also, or put someone first, before you put yourself. And that sacrifice is, as the common word is nowadays, essential. It's essential for you to go into your marriage knowing as young men, knowing as a man that someone is about to be before me. Right, and I tell anyone, like, dude, you everything you want to do now as you single, you better do it, because once you get married, even emotionally, you might have a very bad day, but don't you dare come in and lift up your family because you had a bad day verbally. You better be prepared to put what they've done and what's going on in their life before yourself. And if you got a good woman, she's gonna be concerned about your day too.
Mm-hmm. Well, even if, as y'all saying, being protected to her, and which I said all the great things, I said it was wonderful things, but there are wives in the church that are not feeling fully protected. And we're not just talking about financially, but emotionally and everything else. They're not, because they're I'm hearing it in the counseling sessions. I'm hearing it just in the church. They're not necessarily feeling fully protected. And you had mentioned Christ loving the church and gave himself for it. But we're not, because if we're doing our job, then I think in the church, we shouldn't have much problem, right?
You should, like you said, you shouldn't. We shouldn't have much problems. But to be real, I think marriage is of the world, and we look to how we may please our spouse. And, and the thing about it is that, yes, there's a spiritual side to your marriage. There's a carnal side to your marriage, but you have to be careful and be the one to make sure the spiritual side rule. And when I say rule, rule is that you're governed and leaning on the Lord and how to talk to your wife, you know what I mean? To feel your wife, where, as if they don't say anything, but you can feel that something is up. You know what I mean? Something is wrong. You know what I'm saying? And then at the same time, you got to check yourself. You check yourself, because we go through things separately and we go through things collectively. And I can't allow what I go through separately to mess up my marriage that's to collectively. And to be transparent is that, what I'm going through collectively, I got to be able to trust my wife, to be able to tell my wife what I'm going through emotionally, what I'm going through mentally. Why? Because if I share my heart, I'm expecting her to share her heart. You know what I'm saying? And when you share in your heart, it's something tender. You know what I mean? So it's like, listen, let me tell you what's going on in my life. And one thing men have to understand, sharing your heart to your wife is dynamite. I didn't used to think so. I used to keep it all in because we internalize stuff. And then as we internalize those things and we don't talk about it, we then implode in the marriage. We implode in our wife.
I think it's not just sharing with your wife, it's how you share.
How you share.
Because I'm not sitting in the corner with my thumb in my mouth crying, I had a bad day at work today. I think, we're a man up. I think, like you said, it's not a bad thing to share with your wife, but it's how you share with her and learn what, to say and not to say. Because there are things that your wife can't handle everything.
That's right.
There's a whole bunch of things. There's some things that we have to go to God with because she's not your God. That's right.
That's why
our prayer closet has to come into play and make sure we're sharing everything with God and letting Him regulate. Once our wives are seeing something going on, hopefully she's praying as well and not praying on me, but praying for me. And I'm sharing just some things with her. I can't share all things.
That's right. I agree.
The Bible calls her, if you will, and I don't know why it calls her this because there's nothing weak about her. It calls her the weaker vessel. And so that's why there's some strong things that we have to carry, that burden. I know we have to take up on our own cross, but there's some things that the husbands have to take care of emotionally, mentally, and different things of that nature. But we're the one that need help. God said, I'm going to make you a helpmate. He didn't make us for them. He made them for us. And so we need help. And so we definitely want to let our wives know what's going on so that they can help us and not be necessarily a hindrance, but a help. And so that brings me to, another point.
Okay, hold on. Before you go to that point, can I just hit something? Can I just say something?
Go ahead, bro. Yeah.
What I loved about that verse, right? The weaker vessel. It didn't say the weak vessel. It said the weaker.
I like that.
You know what I'm saying? So if it's the weaker, the other vessel is what? Weak too. You know what I'm saying? You catch it? The other vessel is weak too.
That's true. We're all weak. God said we're like grass.
Yeah.
We just Yeah, you're exactly right. Go ahead, P.
Hold on. Yeah, because I know you're about to go into the next question, but I definitely like to address because I'm trying to be transparent and I try to talk about my own experience. This ain't something I read in the book. This is Pierre done it, and I was very young when I got married. So sharing your feelings with your wife makes you very vulnerable. And I know there's a lot of wives watching the show. And if a man is coming to you about some things that he's going through, bad day, or him playing his role, Wayne, just being who he's supposed to be, or learning to be, growing into be, evolving to be, because that's what happens as you decide to spend your life and commit the rest of your life. There's got to be some room for some evolution. And if you're going to see the most vulnerable parts of him, you're going, and if you don't handle that right, wife, you could do some serious long-term damage. I'm gonna take that and throw this. That's for free. I better not say that again. But yes,
say it again.
Investment vessel that. In other words, your husband is going to show you some weak points, and it ain't your job to, you don't want to get in line with the enemy and throw a jab at him. That's just not it, Let him. The Bible talks about a woman that tears the house down with her own hand. It's your opportunity to shine. God put you in his life to build this man up. And that's for free. You want to be a builder because he's a reflection and you are his reflection. And that's very important because he's going to have some vulnerable, if y'all sharing your lives together, he's going to have some vulnerable days. And I dare to say, if you allow me, that it's your job to protect and cover. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, with that point, I believe it's Colossians 3 that talks about husbands, love your wives. But it doesn't stop there, because that would have been enough to say as husbands, love your wives. Love them, period. We're done. But it goes forward.
Right. Hey, I did my job, baby. I was supposed to love you. I ain't got to honor you, respect. I just got to love you, girl.
That's right. But it goes further. It says, and be not bitter against it. Now, why would we ever be bitter?
Lord. Come on now, yeah. We know, Woo, you can't, you. That's once again with going to guarding your emotions, guarding your emotions. How can you be bitter? You held on to something too long. They could have been something small, or it could have been something great. You refuse to communicate your feelings of why, what happened and what was going on. That's why I say to every married couple, it's important that if something bothers you or something's done and bothered you on Monday, don't wait until next week to talk about it. Talk about it that Monday. Get it off your chest, get it out in the air, and talk about it. If you have to table it after you talked about it, that's when you got to make sure you table it also in your mind. For the simple fact, we all have arguments in our mind with people that's not there. You sit there talking, you see people driving in the car. They don't even have a Bluetooth on. They just sitting there going over what happened during the day or what happened in that moment of a conversation or argument. See what I'm saying? So they just going through. So a husband will have bitterness to his wife because he didn't communicate to her what she did bother her or what she said bothered him. And because he didn't communicate with it, once again, he internalized it. And when he internalized it, it turns from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. And one thing I hate, one thing I cannot stand is when it comes to the conversation or a heated conversation is that, well, last week you said this. And 2 weeks ago you said that. I don't remember what I said last week. I don't remember what I said last week. And the thing about that's what he called the maturity of your marriage. And if you, this is the last thing I'm gonna say, and if you as a husband feel that I can't talk about what it was that was bothering me to my wife because it had turned into an argument, then you have an issue within your marriage. You have a great issue within your marriage because you should be able to talk about anything and everything. And if it bothered you, you should be able to feel free. Whether the wife get upset or not, feel free to free yourself. Listen, what you said bothered me. And my wife helped me to understand that in a marriage and in a relationship, it's not just what you said, it's how you said it. You know what I'm saying? So it's the have that constant dialogue. Because if you don't have that dialogue, you don't have that communication, bitterness will build up, and then you'll find yourself being in a marriage. And what my wife and I, when we talk to married couples and we said, listen, you checked in, but you actually checked out. Your body's checked in, but your emotions, your heart, and everything else is checked out of the marriage.
Well, I believe that, if it's Monday that you made me upset, then Monday I'm addressing that. Because if I'm upset, I believe wisdom, you better give me just a couple of days. And I know the Bible says don't let the wrath go down. Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Mm-hmm. And I believe that. But also wisdom, there you got a lot of people that's just running off at the mouth and they're destroying their wives, or the wife is destroying the husband. But if that is going to be the case, that we're going to address it, if it's happened on Monday and I'm going to address it on Monday, then we have to take the position like God and like in Revelations where he started talking to the churches and do the positive and negatives. You've done this well, and I have somewhat against thee. I got this against you. This is what I got against you. So you got to get positive and negative because nobody likes to be attacked. And
see, my thing is not attacking. It's just basically communicating. Listen, what you said bothered me. We don't have to talk about it today, but I'm letting you know what was said bothered me because I'm not coming like this. I'm just gonna say, it's like, what was said bothered me, Because if you don't say, what was said or what was done bothered you, and you'd be like, fine, okay, I'm gonna wait to talk about this. Time will go on. You may have forgotten. And sometimes, some cases, it is great. You don't say anything. You just swallow it, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Let it go by. Don't be so sensitive. But I do agree with you on that too, Wayne. Wisdom is needed. But you as as yourself, as an individual, you have to know yourself. If you can't handle not saying anything about it and holding on to it for a couple of days and it keeps bothering you, it's like, I don't, you know what I mean? Then not to bring up to be an argument. All right, not to bring up to be an argument, you know what I'm saying? But just to say, listen, I'm just saying.
P? Oh, yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Okay, we playing that game. Okay.
Your turn, Wayne.
We playing that game? Which one are you, Wayne? Which one are you? Which one are you, Wayne?
We got 15 minutes left.
Oh no, man. We got longer than 15 minutes, man. Why you
15 minutes, man. That's it. I'm gonna go see what questions are out there. Hold on, let me see here.
Oh, wait. We got people watching?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I thought this was just being recorded, and you know what I'm saying? Well,
No,
I would like
yeah, Pastor, you live.
I didn't listen, man. I thought this was just us, and you were recording it to show it later.
Hey, Bert,
so
I was
hold
the same
on.
way.
So
I was
hold
the same
on.
way, Pastor Bert.
Check me out. What should a wife do when the husband's not communicating? She should just try to read his mind. She just guess and have the gift of knowledge, and he walk around the house and say, "Oh, this is what's wrong with him." What if he won't communicate?
If he won't communicate, that's what you said, Wayne. It takes wisdom, praying, asking God how, and then also it can be to the point that because I believe you have introverts and you have extroverts in the marriage. An introvert is someone who who really doesn't do a lot of talking. You got a Vulcan pride to get an introvert to talk. You have an extrovert, they'll talk. So if they're an introvert or they're not talking, my question is, what did they do to get you? Because there had to be some talking.
Well, again,
that's
fair enough. But
no, I was gonna say then for the wife is that it's almost like, what is it, like adding little things to see if they get them to respond.
I don't think you should poke and pry at a man that won't communicate.
Yeah, I think this. Do it like this. I'm sorry.
Little pokes.
I believe if you pray and you ask God for wisdom as a wife. Yeah. If you ask God for wisdom to how to open up the communication, because again, that husband may have communicated to you that one time and you dusted him. And he don't trust you anymore. He don't trust you, and he ain't gonna communicate anymore. And he falls in the line of that bitterness. I don't want to communicate because I get bitter every time I communicate because she don't listen. And so, I know some men are out there and they're trying to be great husbands, but whatever happened in the past, man, you gotta let it go.
Gotta let it go.
You gotta let it go, man.
Gotta let it go.
Because Jesus is soon to come. And we got to get our marriages right before God's eyes and kill this bitterness and be able to communicate with our wives. I know you may not trust her anymore, but you got to communicate. And that is key. But the realness of it is that husband has tried to probably communicate to you and you dusted him. And so I know my husband has checked out. What do I get him to do to check? What if a husband's checked out? How do a wife get him to check back in?
Get a hotel room and check into it.
Wait, dude, I was just about to say this is with your house.
Check into a hotel room. No,
but
I think we didn't. That's a loaded question. I speak from my personal experience. We didn't look at the enemy, fighting our marriage, right? We thought that because we married and we loved each other, then there was no room for the devil to come in and set his traps, and when he shuts down a communication line, a strategy of war is go after that communication. If they can't talk to each other, then we about to take them out. And I think that you have to understand that, yes, marriage is a wonderful thing, but when two people of faith is joining, you need to expect and prepare how to respond to a attack. So if that bitterness, and we all know this is men, when it gets thick in the room and when there's tension in the air and when you feeling some type of way, you need to start calling on Jesus and let that, because you want the right message to come across, right? It's not that, you just shut down because she ain't hearing me, or your word is, she's dusting me every time I say this. Man, it could be just 3 words that God can give you, and it breaks up that fire, it breaks up that tension, and everybody's right in their own eyes, right? You want what's supposed to be said, not just what you want to. And I don't know why I feel like this, but the women that are watching, it's not that we don't want to hear you. You need to say the right thing, and you need to ask God for how that man listens. What do I need to say? Because women are they talkers. So they about to say, I give Crystal a card and say, I love you. She'll give me a card and it would be 3 pages. I'll be reading it, it'd be, my card is still, I feel like, well, dang, is this how she, you want to know the right thing to say. It's in the multitude of words. It's those,
that's right.
It's those few words, ladies. It's those words.
But if she knows her husband has checked out, don't try to get him to check back in. Allow God to check him in. And I think that's what you're saying. Yeah. Allow God to check him in, because if you try to keep poking and prying, that's you poking and prying. God, the heart of the king is where?
In the hands of God.
In the hands of God. And he's a king.
And he turned it. The Bible says he turned it
whithersoever he will.
Yeah.
He turns it.
Yeah.
But see, that's why I believe, I believe, seriously, like you said, Wayne, earlier, praying as God for wisdom. There's wisdom needed in marriages. Wisdom needed in marriage. Then the Bible said, dwell with them according to knowledge. If your husband checked out, in your prayer language, God, where did my husband check out? And why did my husband check out? I'm appreciative for one of my mentors that I have, that when I was going through my marriage, when I went to talk to him, and whenever I try to bring up my wife and what my wife did, the first thing he always said to me is, what didn't you do? What didn't you do? You know what I'm saying? So the key thing that he taught me was to examine myself. Don't sit there and always look to point the finger at my wife. So if my wife isn't communicating with me, my question is, what did I do for my wife to feel that she cannot communicate with me? Then the question becomes, if my wife feel like she's checked out, my question is, why does my wife feel like she's checked out? Not me necessarily going to her, but me doing a self-inventory and asking myself, what happened? What was going on? You know what I'm saying? Because God will show you and he'll pinpoint it to you. And like you said, P. Dunn, God will give you those simple words. And one thing my mom taught me was that that when it comes to that, pray and ask God for the right time to talk about what you need to talk about, to set the atmosphere.
Yep. So if I guess this combats, because if you know your husband's checked out, then you know he's in a fight. And if you know that your husband's in a fight, you can see it. The goal is, of course, not to join the fight with whatever is attacking
against them. Don't join the fight against them.
Yeah. Don't fight don't attack him with him, but what would poking him? What should a wife do if she see her husband in the fight?
The same thing she should do when he see her in the fight. Yeah. And she should look at it as somebody's jumping on my husband. And Wayne, I know your wife. She a fight. You know, somebody jump. If me and Pastor Burke over there start jumping on you, and you got your hands full with us, I'm sure Jenny's not too far behind.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah, and then you know, how does she help us let her husband know that she's there to support him?
That's right.
You know what I mean? Encourage him, let him know I'm there to support you.
You know what happens? You know what happens is that the fight that's fighting us is hurting her.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, you know, it's hard to maneuver because, bro, what you going through is hurting me. It's dude, you know, so it's hard to distinguish and decipher for that wife who's the enemy. Who do I put my fist up? Because Pierre, what you doing and what this thing you struggling with is now making me feel some type of way. Why are you allowing it? Man, and when I was going through those things, man, the question was for me, and I'm speaking for Pierre Dunn Jr., is it was introduced as we get older, those struggles and fight and me checking out. I'll tell you, and then I'll let it go. I remember when I was working for FedEx and I was working my rear off, and I remember this selfish feeling just coming, like, man, I've been working all day. You know, she should have this done. She should have that done. And I was just, but she married me at 20. I was a kid. And here come this man, Pierre, that we all about to find out. He walking through the door feeling grown. You know what I'm saying? With my chest sticking out. Now I'm all this. And yeah, I pay all the bills up here. And I didn't used to be like that. You know? I didn't even have those feelings. But 27, 28, working all day and my meal ain't hot, you know, then I'm like, oh man, you know, you ain't taking, you know. So all of a sudden my attitude starts changing. I remember my wife looking at me like, what is wrong with you? You never sat down and made your plate before you waited on us to eat. And I was like, well, it should have been done, you know, I was tripping hard. But it was being introduced to us, and you got to realize that I was learning me at the next stage of life, right? And it cost me a whole lot.
So with that being said, in learning yourself, here's the problem that we get into as a lot of married couples. We're coming to learn, especially whether you're married young, whether you married middle age, old age, whatever case may be, you say, I'm getting to learn you. This is what's so beautiful about marriage in the church. It's an open book test.
That's right.
It's already been written.
That's right.
How this thing should go about. And I truly believe most husbands, if 90%, maybe not. I'm getting a strong percentage. I'm gonna take a poll from the wives, but I believe a lot of men love their wives as they love the church.
Explain it. What?
So the Bible says, husbands,
they love
your wife as Christ loved the church. But I believe husbands are loving their wives as they love the church.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what most husbands are doing. They're loving their wives as they love the church. Not
Take that back, Wayne. Take that back. Take that back. I need to do better. Yeah, I need to do better. Look, he didn't turn this down. Right. Oh man, Wayne called us out. Yeah, this show is over. This show, Wayne always drop a bomb.
That's good, man. That's
what
good.
I said. He's a chess player. He does things first.
That's good.
First.
Good.
It's
That principle thing.
Yep.
It's an open book test, and we're failing the test.
Good. That's good.
That's good.
And so we gotta get back to the book and love our wives as Christ loved the church. And you gotta go all the way back to Genesis, because Christ, as we know, is God. Christ, Jesus Christ, and God are one. They're the same person.
That's right.
And so you got to go back how he loved the church. In the Old Testament, I read it so many times, and you just read it through. You're like, what is wrong with the church?
Yeah. Oh, listen. Or you can flip.
Children of Israel. What's that?
Or you can flip it and say, what is wrong with God? Continue to love these stiff-necked, hard-headed, not doing right, generation after generation people. So with that being said, Wayne, that's tight, because the thing about it is this. So just because you got married doesn't mean your marriage is going to be perfect. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. And stop looking for a perfect marriage based on what you see on TV, based on somebody else's relationship or somebody else's marriage. In every marriage, there are different expectations. You have to know what is the expectation within your marriage, and meet those expectations, or communicate those expectations and meet those expectations. So that what you said, Wayne, is something I didn't grab hold of and didn't understand in my earlier years of getting married. Love my wife as Christ loved the church. So seeing it from Genesis, like you said, all the way to Revelations and all the things he went through. When things didn't go right in my marriage, I was like, yo, I'm out. I'm checking out. Listen, I'm checking out emotionally, and in a couple days, couple weeks, I'm preparing to check out physically. You know what I mean? I'm checking out. But like you said, if we stick to the book, which is an open book test, one thing I didn't do, you know what I mean? And one thing I didn't do also was I didn't stay prayerful. You know what I mean? I didn't stay prayerful. I didn't fast for my marriage. You know what I'm saying? I didn't do none of those things for my marriage. I try to handle my marriage in a carnal way. And when I say carnal way, it's not necessarily doing it the world's way, but trying to do my marriage my way. You know what I mean? I excluded from God. And when I say excluded from God, it's like, yeah, I'm in the church. But when it came to issues in the marriage, did I go to God? Or did I go to my past and how I seen family members handle it or friends handle it? And do I want to handle it that way? And last thing I'm going to say is this, is that one thing I want to tell our married couples, please understand, when you go through things in your marriage, your spouse is not your enemy. Your spouse is not your enemy. It may, you got to make sure that as individuals that your door is closed to the enemy using you to fight against your spouse. Because your spouse is not your enemy. And just because things ain't going right doesn't mean that, it's time to throw in the towel. Doesn't mean it's time to bring up that big D word.
Well, I believe a lot of husbands are saying you don't deserve for me to treat you great because you're not treating me great. And so they think it's a tit for tat. As the Bible already said, don't rail evil for evil. Don't do evil for evil, as we continue to be in the word of God. And that's what this whole thing is about. We're not in the world. We're in the book. We're in Christ. We're in Christ Jesus.
And as I would say, we have to stay in the script of the scriptures, because in the script it says, do unto others as you will have them do unto you. If you yelling at your spouse, expect your spouse to yell at you. And if you shutting down to your spouse, expect your spouse to shut down to you. Do what you want done to you within your marriage. And I can hear some people in their marriage say, well, I do that and I don't get it back. It's not reciprocated. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not given back. So listen, the Lord, God continued to love the church. He wasn't getting the love back necessarily, with this generation, but the next generation, and then the next generation. You understand what I'm saying? So it's a thing you got to work on.
Pierre, I got you, Pierre. Keep that thought. The problem we don't see is that, again, the scripture says we love God because of what?
He first loved us.
Because he first loved us. And so matter if our wives, and I've always said, and I'll keep saying this, that as far as scripture, there's no clauses. There's no love your wife unless she does this. Why? Why? Submit yourself unless. There's no clauses in the Bible.
Yep. You're good. You're good.
Because there's no clauses in the Bible. Again, when you look at the virtuous woman, where I used to believe that as a young man that grew up in church, I believe I had to go, like Pierre was saying, I had to pray for that good wife. I had to pray for that wife. But where you find the virtuous woman at is inside the marriage. You don't find her before the marriage. You find her inside the marriage, because she wouldn't be virtuous before she got there if you read the scripture.
Well, hold on, but his mama said, who can find it?
And that's the onus is on the man.
Well, hold on, wait. Hold on. Let me just slow down for a minute. Because I have to first say I am sorely convicted. This man said, and I want that, because see, the only people we see in the audience got to know this. We only are looking at us. We ain't seeing all the people that are watching us. So we just see, I know, Pastor Burke, you have, we only see us. So I only can really see me right now. And you said, Wayne Rogers said, we are loving our wives as we love the church, not as Christ loved. I got to do better. Now, so we've addressed why. Yes, I gotta put God first, more, and then if I can't, if wives let their husband, because it ain't, you want to see him love you as Christ loved the church, so he has to give God his best, and then you will get your husband's best. That right there, Wayne, is a phenomenal revelation for me. And I just like to let everybody know I got to do better. You know, us as husbands got to do better towards God, so we can, because that if that's the mirror, that's the reflection of how we love our wives.
And I've oftentimes said, you know, my pastor, which is a phenomenal. I love Pastor Harris and Sister Harris, both of them. They got great leaders. And I have a great father. I have a great mother. But my pastor didn't teach me how to be a husband, how to love my wife. My dad didn't teach me how to love a wife. It was God that taught me how to love my wife. Mm-hmm. Because the Bible would have told you, love your wife as your pastor teaches you.
No, it doesn't.
Or love your wife as your dad teaches you.
That's right.
The person that teaches you is Christ himself.
That's right. To
show you how to love.
Yeah. But like you said, Wayne, if you're not in the book, you're not going to understand that to know how to love your wife. Like you said, that's point blank. And it's Christ it's God that's going to teach us how to love our wife. But if I don't spend time with God, I'm not going to know how to love my wife.
Man, I'm sore.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm sore. So wait a minute, hold on. So for all the brothers, like you said, when he checks out and all that kind of stuff, when that stuff happens in your marriage, you gotta be able to get the guy right, because he's showing us how to do this. We want to love them like Christ loved the church. How can you do that without knowing Christ?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That's very important. And however, and you will know a tree by the fruit that it bears. And if you see that it bears, yes, if you see that there's issues, that could be a indicator that maybe we should be giving God more time together. You know what I mean? He has to be willing to let down his pride, grab his wife's hand, and say, we need to go to God together. We need to pick up a fast again. Whatever it might be, change the atmosphere. Because now, you know, especially when the devil starts raising his ugly head, you know, and I'm transparent, and I like to be as tangible as possible. That did convict me, because that is definitely something you want to work on. You know why? It's because the enemy is constantly planning on how to break it up.
He's constantly doing it.
Even if me and Crystal's we just having the time of our lives right now, but there is an enemy that's going to attack, and so you have to prepare, and that's good stuff, Wayne.
You do have to prepare your whole being. Let this mind be in you, which was also in your pastor.
Yep.
Let this mind be in you, which was also in your father, who is over you, your natural daddy.
Yeah.
If we're not following the book, and I know, I love being transparent, and I love being real, but we can't be real if we're not real with God. We can't say, okay, this is what's hurting me, if we're not being honest with God and fully allowing the Holy Ghost to rule and rest and abide in us. We're not going to have great marriages if we're so focused on the problem instead of the problem taker, the problem solver.
The problem solver.
Yep, the problem solver. Because God can solve many problems. He's the ultimate solver of all problems. Yep. I've seen him do it through scripture so many times. The Pharisees, which if you look at it as, again, Christ is the head of the church. Yeah. And you take the Pharisees, this is not no funny stuff, because I know there's some funny stuff going on in the world. But if you look at the church, as the Bible calls it, the bride of Christ, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the bride of Christ, if we look at the Pharisees, his wife always came at him. Yeah. But he always took care of her with wisdom.
Yeah.
And with skillfulness.
That's good.
Throughout scripture. He always did that throughout scripture. You always see him handle his wife, his bride, with not only utmost care, but she didn't have nothing else to say after he dealt with her. Mm-hmm. And if we deal with our wives just like that, I don't think we may have some problems still, but we won't be as frustrated in the process, because Jesus Christ, we won't be bitter. And so a young man had texted me and said, how we know we're ready to get married in that stage, as far as getting married, is first thing that Christ did, he dealt with himself before he even dealt with the church, before he dealt with his bride. He went 40 days and 40 nights. He went and dealt with himself. Now I'm going to deal with your problems. But first, let me deal with my problem. Go ahead, Bert.
No, that's tight. See, you're giving me a different perspective. That's why I had to shut up and listen, because that's tight. Because he fasted 40 days, 40 nights before he started his ministry. Marriage is a ministry. Marriage is a ministry, and we are to be a reflection of the love that God has for the church to the world, to show the world. Yeah, things may not be going right in my marriage, but I'm not abandoning my marriage, because God didn't abandon us, and with that being said, because he didn't abandon us, we can't look to abandon our marriage. That's right. We got to sit there and seek God, and how to seek God for his wisdom through his word, and through prayer, through fasting, and through his word, and how we can better our marriage and better ourselves as husbands, better ourselves as wives. I can't better myself in my marriage without the word of God, or without God, or without prayer, or without fasting. Because if you try to do it that way, you will basically have a form of a marriage that has a dead cat down the line, and it eventually is going to start stinking. And then folks will say, well, I thought they loved each other. I thought they were all this and that, but you don't know what's going on behind closed doors.
Yeah. So in all that, you know, making sure we love and be connected with each other, we definitely got to be in the Word. We definitely got to work. We got to make sure we stay prayed up, and we got to make sure that God is the center focus, because we're not of the world. We're in the world, but we're not of. We're not talking about marriages in the world, if you will. And you said that, Bert, perfectly in the beginning. That, you know, he that is single care for the things of the Lord, and he that's married care for the things how he may please his spouse.
That's the script.
I ask you, you know, you got to ask your wife, are you pleased? You got to ask. You got to go start asking those questions. You
be ready for the answer.
What's that?
Be ready for the answer.
Some of them, no, they're not ready for the question, Bert.
Listen, it's both then. It's both. They may not be ready for the question.
You don't want to hear the answer to.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, we're going to talk some more. We're gonna come back to this. You know what I'm saying? Stay right there. But I want to wrap it up. I want to make sure everybody out there submit your questions. We definitely want marriages to be great. I believe in marriage. I don't believe that the husband's right. I don't believe that the wife is right. Although I'm for women. I got 5 of them in my life. My 4 sisters and my mom. I do care about women, but I believe in the marriage. I do believe you can be happy and married at the same time. And be safe.
As well.
I believe that. Well. Be blessed. Send questions in. We will answer those questions. Bert, P, thank you so much. Stay right there. We appreciate you. We will be coming back. Our wives will be coming, even on the show, if you will. So be ready for that one. Yeah, I know.
Are they kicking us off?
No, they gonna kick us off. No,
I know that's right.
They gonna kick it off.
Right, we come.
I know that's right.
Be blessed.
He can't do that. Amen.